Hey YouTube, John here with Sonex Adventures. Today we're going to be doing some local flying around Fulton County Airport. We've got a little bit of cloud cover, you'll see. Nothing major. It was a beautiful day for flying, a little bumpy. And basically doing a little bit more technique in this flight. Wanted to do a 3-point takeoff and work on my landing technique, energy management as we come in on final, and I'll talk about that in the video. So thanks for watching. If you would like, and we would appreciate it, a thumbs up on the video and a subscribe, and we'll keep producing videos like this for you, and we'll jump right into today's flight. Thanks for watching. Alright, so right here is going to be my run up, and basically with this airplane I take it up to 2,000 RPM so I don't tip it over, doing a mag check, carb heat check, fuel pump's already on, making sure they're back on both, making sure everything else is on. So we're good to go there. We'll go ahead and proceed out to the runway. The little picture-in-picture view here. The goal for this takeoff was to do a 3-point takeoff. I've been using the technique where I push the tail up like I do with my triplane, and it's causing it to wag a little bit. That's probably me just being heavy on the rudders on a plane that's a lot more sensitive than my triplane. I wag the tail pretty heavily on the triplane. But here we go again, smooth application of power. Start accelerating, double check everything looks good, and just let it fly off. And we're looking at the airspeed indicator here, and we're airborne. So at that point, a little forward pressure, check the trim, go ahead and proceed into our climb out. Doug was asking me, he's like, was that a 3-point takeoff? Yeah, it was. So here we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing I always do, just accelerate in my climb. You can see one thing that I've noticed on this video is, I was talking to Doug there about the 3-point kept it from wagging, is that airspeed indicator jumps quite a bit. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the final approach. But that's something that I'm noticing with this airplane. So back to the takeoff, the plane took off at about 55 miles an hour. I paused the recording and went over and checked it on a higher definition monitor there. Here we're climbing about 100 indicated. That's a little slower than they recommend in the manual. About 80 miles an hour I believe is what they recommend. But again, this is for me and make sure I don't overheat, and with 2 people in the plane, just doing a comfortable climb. It was pretty bumpy, and you'll see at some point that I do a little bit more of an aggressive climb here as I'm getting out of the pattern. And we're heading off to the west. You can see the clouds out there. So here I slow it back a little bit more, get a little bit more vertical speed down the climb. But back to the fluctuating airspeed indicator, and you'll see it on my landing approach. I'm going to have to check that. I think it's too short. I think it's sitting under the wing and not getting out of the boundary layer, because it'll jump. I've noticed more in this video, looking at the cockpit, that it's wagging quite a bit, and I'm not happy about that, so we'll get that figured out. I typically watch my electronic instrument for true airspeed and calibrated airspeed more than the steam gauge anyway, and I'll talk more about that in a future video, how I'm going to address the instruments. But here we are a little faster now, climbing out. You can see the EFIS up here, which is the electronic information system that's in the windscreen there. It looks like it takes up a lot of the view, but it actually doesn't. It's surprising how little visual interference I get there, and I've got ForeFlight open on my iPhone. And I like the synthetic vision capability of that, so that on the left side of that display, you'll see an attitude indicator. And on the right side is a moving map. And then ForeFlight I keep open as backup. But we're just out here tooling around. It was a beautiful day. It was bumpy underneath the clouds, so at some point in the flight here we climb out here, and Doug and I now, you can see the headsets and the intercom, we're able to talk to each other. Another point of note is I've got my radio with the rubber duck antenna instead of wired into the airplane antenna. That radio is picking up communications from 70 miles away, and I'm getting a lot of just interference. If somebody keys their mic 65 miles away, I can't hear their transmission necessarily. Sometimes I can, but it's just static, and I've got the squelch turned all the way up and the noise reduction circuitry turned on, and it's it's not doing it for me. It's very annoying. So at some point, my goal to address that is I'm going to rearrange the instrument panel, probably make a whole new one at some point. And what I'll do is put the radio that fits in that bezel area and move the airspeed indicator to the far right side. So I'll cluster the engine and flight digital displays. I'll put a radio where I can reach it right by the throttle, and then I'll put the steam gauge airspeed indicator off to the right. At this point in the flight, Doug and I were tired of getting buffeted around right below those clouds. And there's a pretty wide open area out. You can see it better in the wing cam view. But here I'm climbing. You'll notice my airspeed slowed back down here, doing about 90 miles an hour. Again, just gentle climb to get up above the scud here. At this point, we're northwest of Wauseon, Fulton County Airport, the home airport. And we really didn't go anywhere this day. We're just flying around. I think that's the Menards Manufacturing or Distribution Center, not manufacturing. Off the nose there. And again, just working around inside my box here. Just enjoying the day. Once we got up above the clouds here, it got a lot nicer. One thing that we were dealing with throughout the flight was in areas those clouds would close in, and obviously you don't want to get stuck on top. It's not as bad as you would imagine it being from the cockpit view, the main view. You can see out off the wing cam, it's still pretty wide open out there. But it was a nice day once we got up above the bumps. It's always interesting what you see when you're watching the video again after a flight. Doug and I here are just chatting on the headsets and able to talk to each other with dual headsets through the intercom. This is a battery-powered intercom that I grabbed off of Sporty's, I believe. It may not have been Sporty's, it may have been Aircraft Spruce, but regardless, that's really made a big difference, being able to talk to each other. And here again, we're just flying around up to the north, and you can see there's some clouds here. I think my goal right here was to circle around this cloud, maintaining separation, but I knew it would make a pretty picture here, so I'm putting the wing camera angle around this cloud as we're flying around out there. My favorite thing to do is cloud dance for sure. Nice to have a little bit of puff clouds out there. Let you realize how fast you're flying. Alright, here we're setting up in the landing position here. We just turned on to base. You can see I'm doing about 85 miles an hour here. 90. But again, this is the point I was making earlier in the video. Watch that airspeed indicator there in the center right above my hand. At this point, I pretty much am flying the airplane by feel anyway. Obviously, don't want to get too slow. And here we're turning into final. We had about a 15 mile an hour wind at that moment, and so I turned a little short here. As in my last video, I got pushed a little too far off to the south in this case, since we're landing to the east. North is to the left. But you can see that airspeed indicator. It's moving quite a bit. But anyway, so here I've kind of crabbing a little bit of left wing down, just kind of trying to hold that center line of the runway, slowing down. You see it jump. There goes the airspeed indicator jumping, and I point that out to Doug there with my finger. So at this point, I just focus on out of the cockpit and landing. It's just real feel at this point. My goal was to try to slow down as much as possible. It's another reason why I don't think that airspeed indicator is that accurate. We're doing about 60 right here, and I just holding that 3-point, holding, and then touchdown. Slightly first on the tail, but no bounce. So we were doing about 55 miles an hour right there at touchdown, if that airspeed indicator is accurate. And now the more I see its behavior, the less confident I am of it, how accurate it is. I think it's in the the average of what it's jumping around at, but it's something that I want to look at. I think that the solution is going to be to extend it. I think it's too short, and I'll take a picture of that and talk about it in the next video, because I do want to go out and do a little bit of cross checks with that. The challenge with my digital GPS instruments is I'm in miles an hour on the airspeed indicator. There's lag on the GPS instruments, and they're in knots, which is an easy conversion, but I'll have to go back and analyze it and see. But I don't really think any of them are all that accurate. It's really just going to be mostly feel. Key is making sure we don't get too slow. Little high five there for a successful flight. And here we are on the taxi back. So thank you for watching. Again, I would appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe. And I'll post videos every time I go flying. I'll post. And did something a little different with the camera views here today. I'll always carry at least 3 GoPros. I like to have the cockpit view, the wing cam, and the tail view, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm out there doing. And we'll go from there. So thanks for watching.